Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being the show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Brea. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, obviously, the main issue at first is there's a fog growing in, and it's kind of the worst possible thing to happen because when this fog grows in, you can't see anything or anyone, so they're going to have to bunker down, but then you have little threads happening at the same time. Lucas is kind of Scott's up to something. He's acting super suspicious. It's like, oh, all of a sudden your ankle's healed. You're not limping around. It's like, that's the problem. Scott's a terrible liar and an actor. Even, which is so funny when I saying that because it's you have to, it's good acting to be a bad actor. You know what I mean? I think that's such a funny, little oxymoron sometimes where you have to act like a bad actor. You're like, okay, I have to act like I'm doing a terrible job. I just think it's a funny thing. But either way, Luke's is yeah, he's lying, he's hiding something. It's yeah, he is. But it's because the only person who's supposed to know what's what is Gavin. And Aldrich and him finally talk. It's yeah, she's always known from the beginning that Gavin had a special role in this, but even she said, I didn't want you involved. I mean, this all has to tie back to Silas. Silas from the beginning didn't want Isaiah to go through the portal because once again, I think this is all part of some grander plan. I think I keep theorizing that it's some kind of loop, that they know that this is how things are supposed to go for this whole cycle of things to happen. Because yes, Aldridge admits that her and everyone, Silas, as well as both of Gavin's parents are they are some of the scientists. In fact, they are the OG scientists when it comes to the Lazarus Project. They're making the time portal thing. So that's why I'm thinking right, they basically broke the space-time continuum once they did this. And that's why sinkholes are popping up all over the place. That's kind of been my running theory, that they're trying to correct what they did, but things have to happen. Once again, I don't know whether it's oh man, the future is so doomed, we know what's happening and we're trying to prevent it, or basically because they did what they did, they know the future is going to collapse because of it. Because once again, even in 88, Josh and Riley are working with Franklin about the whole, the portals are going to cause, this particular one is going to cause a massive tidal wave that's going to kill a lot of people and cause a lot of mass destruction. So, and once again, this sinkhole didn't exist in 88. There's no history books in present day, saying anything about it. So it has to be a situation of these are going to start popping up more and more frequently. And it's going to just basically probably either destroy this planet or just once again make the entire space-time continuum collapse upon itself. That eventually it get to the point, no point in history will become safe. Everything will get erased. It might be time, space, continuum, Armageddon type of thing. That's been my running theory, and it feels like we are tiptoeing towards that this episode. Who knows? Because the way Aldrich puts it, it sounds like Gavin's mom is going to come back to 10,000 BC, and because this is, for whatever reason, this is the centerfold of their plan, because they built the tower here and everything, but why 10,000 BC? I guess maybe they had to go so far back in time that it wouldn't have any direct, I said, they popped it up anywhere else, they draw too much attention, so you have to go to a place in time where there are very few people around, it's secluded, no one's going to know much about it. It's enough back then that no one will be able to, it won't have, the most massive, it could even be that they pick the one point in time, they're this is the one point in time when we do something here, it will have minimum ripple effects across the time of us building the tower here and making this the heart of the Lazarus Project. Maybe they ended up here by accident. Maybe they chose the place by accident. There's so many questions that we never get answered from Aldrich because sadly she dies at the end of this episode, And I think there's a little bit of effed up irony. It's right, you survived getting stabbed by Silas last season, get killed by a wolf. Josh luckily survived the wolf attack, but, different circumstances. They were all separated. They couldn't really help Aldrich at the time. And I think her condition, because it wasn't treated immediately, was, there's probably very little they could do for her in this regard. But it's yeah, she's the one that had a lot of the answers, and so now she's gone. Because her plan was, she says that, and we finally get an answer to, yes, the rocks, the agreement that the exiles have with the tower. We still don't know what they're getting out of it, the exiles, but they are in fact fueling the thing. Like, I figured, like, that had to be the case. It had to be some kind of resource necessary for the portal. So it turns out it is, and Aldrich's plan is to hijack that and make the delivery. I guess pretend like they're from the Exiles so that they can make the delivery themselves. I guess they wouldn't know what Gavin looks like because they probably would be aware of Isaiah because maybe they've seen him. I mean, it depends on many factors, whether like Silas or his daughter or son-in-law had Isaiah around the others. So like, who knows? Because we have no idea what the staffing situation in that tower is. Like, how long these people, when did certain people join along? Because it sounds like the four, Aldrich, Silas, and Gavin's parents are like the head of they're the ones who started this, and who knows when they eventually brought other people on board. Who knows? There's like I said, still a lot of questions on that front, but this is also, the fog was also the opportunity. Not only were they surviving wolf attacks, they were also dealing with the fact we also have to deal with the fact that, a lot of stuff came to a head. Obviously, Scott kind of had no choice but to reveal the fact is he's kind of been lying to everyone about the whole Aldrich thing. And I think for him, it's like, because he's always been the nerdy dude that he's into the stuff that he's into, and just not even just like the nerdy stuff in like the geek culture way, just like in general, like, he's the one that figured out, like, we had to be in, like, 10,000 BC. Like, he was the one that kind of figured out a lot of that stuff out last season. So, but, like, Aldrich opened up his world to, like, oh my god, like, that people have control of time portals, they're the ones in control of time travel. Once again, it's kind of hard to say you're in control when you're not necessarily in control, but maybe they have some monochrome of control, but the rest of it's kind of like a spreading wildfire type of thing, out of their control. But either way, there was the Izzy thing, which we learned a really heartbreaking thing this episode, that Izzy blamed herself for her parents' divorce. I mean, and the sad thing is, that's not, like, that strange. You hear that is at least, I think, a common enough thing where kids kind of blame themselves. Like, they kind of think, like, oh man, like, maybe I wasn't good enough as a kid. Like, maybe I'm the reason why my parents split. Like, yeah, they were fighting, but maybe it was over me. Like, that could really, like, psychologically impact the kid. And it had an effect on Izzy, because she says, like, everything was fine before my accident. And then, like, the moment everything happened with my leg, like, you guys, like, she's like, I remember you, like, yeah, dad had his issues beforehand, but it's also, like, rose-tinted glasses. Like, she, probably a lot of, like, the real, like, they knew how bad things got with their dad. Obviously, Josh was a little, I think it was Josh that was a lot harsher on their dad than Izzy was. I mean, the only instance I'm saying that, like, yeah, like Josh, I mean, we saw a lot of that in season 1. Josh couldn't believe in his dad anymore. It's like, dad let us down so many times. Izzy was a lot more forgiving of their dad, but maybe it's because Josh is older, and so maybe he saw a little bit more, maybe he was just, whatever the case may be, is they tried to do everything they could to prevent the kids from ever seeing, like, how nasty things were and how bad things were. And so Izzy noticing, like, right, my leg was kind of what led to the issues, not knowing, like, there's a lot of complications there. It's like, right, because even Izzy's like, oh, you don't want me to help? Like, oh, I bet you didn't make Josh stay behind. It's like, oh, she did all the time. Josh is just too damn stubborn and he wouldn't listen. And you're stubborn too and you won't listen. And it's like, right, you both get it from your parents. But when it comes to Izzy, yes, Eve was kind of like super overprotective and stuff because she was overcompensating. As we know, Izzy's accident happened and Eve, like, blamed herself, being like, oh my god, it's my fault. If I had picked Izzy up instead of getting someone else to do it because I was too busy having my affair with Levi, like, she had carried a lot of that guilt, and now it's like, my child is carrying that guilt because of me, like, you know, because she wanted to put her feelings aside and put her family first, is what was, you know, kind of where she was in that situation. And she ultimately ends up telling Izzy the truth. It's like, right, me and Levi were thinking, like, Levi was there, and it's like, I love your dad and I love our family, but I also love Levi. It's like, Izzy's angry a little bit, but she's like, she was hoping that when Josh and Eve came back, they could be a family. It's like, we're never going to stop being a family. No matter what happens between me and your dad, I will always love you. And because he kind of picked it up a little bit this episode himself, Gavin, when they were holding hands and she saw Levi and she kind of pulled away. He turns and sees Levi. He's like, he kind of knows what it is. Like, he knows, but he doesn't, like, he knows obviously like there was something, he's known for a while that something happened between them, but he doesn't know if it's still ongoing. And it is, like, Eve kind of made her decision. It's like they were broken, and it's past that point of like putting that back together. It's like she does love Levi, and I think that's the direction she wants to go. But like breaking it to Gavin, he is different. He is back to the person he was before, like before the visions and stuff. So it's complicated. I said that last episode was going to be complicated. It's even more so because even at the end, you see Izzy kind of looking at Levi, and it's like, it's still kind of like, oh, like my mom had an affair. That's why my parents broke up, and my mom's still in love with you. But I want my family together, and you're kind of you're the odd man out. You're the issue here. So that, and especially because Levi's always been a family friend. He's been Uncle Levi. He's Dad's best friend. He's always been family to us. So it makes things complicated. It's understandable why Josh reacted the way he did the moment he found out about it last season. So Izzy's kind of going through it now too, because it's all kind of getting thrust upon her at once. So. Then there's also the situation of some of Para's people decided they wanted to get revenge against the Sky people, because it's like, yeah, you snuck into our village, you stole stuff, of course we're going to get revenge. Luckily, the clearing, like Eve set up a plan to kind of draw them into a trap and surrounded them. Luckily, it didn't turn into a fight. Unfortunately, it didn't turn into a fight because Wolf showed up, and, you know, Eve and Levi helped Joseph, so it's like, cool, like, we can let bygones be bygones, because it's like, right, you could have just left us to the wolves, but you didn't, you actually helped. So we're kind of, once again, we're all trying to make it here, we're all trying to survive. And I do like, immediately, especially because of the whole Sky People conversation, it does immediately make me think of, like, the parallels to, like, the 100. Like, obviously they were in a very similar situation with, well, at the time they called them the Grounders, but obviously, like, Sky Crew and Tree Crew. Either way. That's also quite a terrifying situation. They're hiding on the bus, and the wolves are, I mean, I guess it makes sense too. They're big wolves, so they're like breaking through the metal, I guess, because like the metal's kind of been worn down over because of the environment, stuff like that's probably like worn down, or maybe it's just they're that massive and they probably have like, I mean, what a natural wolf probably could do to you. Not trying to paint this as like wolves as like these like terrible creatures, because I kind of got that came up in a conversation one time. I know that's why I'm kind of getting defensive about it. Like, I'm not trying, we're also talking about not like regular wolves, but I'm saying like probably the pressure from like a wolf's natural bite is probably like, there's probably a lot of pressure there. You amplify that by like thousands of years of pre-evolution, and we get these prehistoric kind of wolves who are much bigger, and the pressure that they're probably able to bite down. I don't know if it'd be enough to like rip through modern day steel. Who cares? It's a fictional story. We're not, I mean, maybe there's some grounded science in that. I don't care if an explanation, but it's still like, yo, ripping through that's wild. And they were going to smash through the windows too. People are trapped. Luckily, combined with the fuel from those rocks, that is used to fuel the time portal, using the fire that they'd set up to draw Para's people in, sets off the fire and scares them off. So, I mean, they didn't necessarily have the weaponry and preparation, especially in a fog like this, to deal with like a pack of wolves like that. So, luckily, it worked out like that. And at the end, though, the end result is that it's like, right, let's put the past between past and the past. Like, the fact is, let's move forward together. A lot more cooperation between Para's people and the Sky people, because it's like, yo, we're all in this. We're all, once again, trying to make it together. So there's going to be a little bit more cooperation, which the Para stuff ties into the Tai stuff. The moment that guy like, oh, my name's Ant. Yeah, I'm your patient. He's like, oh my God, how'd you get down there? He's like, yeah, I'm with some other survivors from Brea. I'm like, well, the only other survivors we're aware of are in are captured by the exiles. So that's why I was like, that's weird. The moment that happened, I was like, Ty got a headache earlier. He's hallucinating, isn't he? And lo and behold, it is. It's and I think it kind of ties into pun both intended and non-intended, that Ty would see this particular patient, because apparently this patient was in crisis and his wife asked him not to go, and he did anyway. And it's like, that's where, like, they were already having their issues, but that was one point where it's just like, that was kind of the point of no return for the relationship. And it's like, he proved time and time again that he would put other people, his wife was like, oh, you never put me first. And it's like, right, he recognized it, and he doesn't blame Anthony. He's kind of like, that's on me. I've got to recognize what's important to me, because he wanted to help Anthony, and he's like, right, I left everyone in the clearing in danger. They needed my help back there. I mean, that was even something Sam was like, yeah, you got to choose. Are you going to choose between Para, or are you going to choose us? In the end, he chooses Para, which I feel like, well, at least putting her first. It's like, well, now choosing Para means kind of choosing everything and everyone too. So, but it's still like, no, like, her being taken care of comes first before helping anyone else, because you got to help. I mean, because same thing with Eve and Gavin. They put their family first. Obviously, it's like, yeah, we're going to help everyone else too, but our family, they're the most important people to us. And for Ty, it's like, Para is the most important person to him. But yeah, like, his condition is getting worse. So is he going to tell the others about the fact is that, hey, I'm hallucinating now. So probably going to have to be careful about that. Because that's probably going to come up in the worst possible times. But also it tells Ty, like, who knows how my condition's getting worse. So who knows how much time I actually have left. But you do see Eve seeing them together and, like, smiling, and, you know, Ty kind of smiles and nods back to her. So, like, she's happy that Ty, like, everything worked out. Ty has Para, and everything, you know, worked out in the end. Well, except, once again, except for the Aldrich stuff, but yeah. I do think it is sweet that, like, Scott, like, is legitimately broken up about Aldrich, because this is the only person he's gotten close to down here that's dead. Because also, like, she opened up his world of, like, yo, she showed me things I never would have thought possible. Like, and the way she makes it sound like she knows what Scott's future holds. Like, he has his own roles in all of this. And I'm curious, was she setting him up almost in, like, a protege type of role of, like, I want you. Because it feels like she chose Scott for a reason. There has to be a thing of just like Gavin, she's like, oh, I know your destiny. She must know, like, what Scott's end result must be. And he must somehow eventually either choose to, or, like, you know, maybe it's predetermined that he will become a part of the Lazarus Project, that he has to maybe fill Aldrich's role to some extent. I forgot to talk about it, but another revelation. I keep saying revolution. Another revelation we found out about this episode is finally why Veronica is avoiding Lily. I was like, what was the terrible thing that you did? I was like, did you kill her parents or something? And it's like, no. The terrible thing that Veronica, because she's like, I need you to know why, like, you shouldn't be my friend, why you shouldn't care about me. Lily, I chose you. Like, before Aaron grabbed you, I'm the one who pointed you out. You know, and it's like, I'm the one that took you from your family. I'm the reason why you are where you are now. And who knows, like, Ella as Lily, who knows how she would have fully responded, because she already knew, like, yeah, Veronica and Aaron kidnapped me and stuff. So it's like, but she still loved Veronica regardless of it all. So it's like, right, now I remember everything. I do remember you took care of me. It's like, because even, like, Veronica having, like, a panic attack, I think that's what really, like, made Veronica go, like, I need to tell you the truth, because Ella was there to help her through that panic attack. Because I remember, like, when Aaron would, like, lock us in, like, the basement or the room or whatever, and she helped her through her panic attack. You know, and once again, I think it is such a beautiful thing where it's like, right, when I was a kid, you were there to protect me. You helped me through all the terrible stuff. Because it wasn't just me going through it. You were just, even saying, like, now, like, you were, I don't blame, like, I forgive you, Veronica, because you were just as much of a victim of Aaron as I was. So it's like, right. It's not, so I was like, oh God, I was like, oh, I was relieved that, I mean, it's a terrible situation, obviously, but it is a thing of, yeah, it was a Stockholm Syndrome thing that, like, Aaron, like, kidnapped you, took you from your family and put you in that situation and, like, used you to pick someone else. And you sadly, but it's like, it's not on you. It was all on Aaron. He's the bad guy in this situation. You're just another victim, just like Ella. You know, so I thought that was beautiful, and seeing them connecting like that at the end. And you see Lucas, I think he's, you know, happy for Veronica, but also, you know, the time that they're spending together, like the whole egg thing and him faking it. She's like, oh, that's not funny. He was like, oh, it's a little funny. I was like, seems like that's going to be a super cute thing. But I think at the end of the day, he's happy for Veronica. But also it's like, I think it's also a reminder of, like, all these happy people around him. It's probably just a reminder, you know, I mean, he's all alone in it. Like, not even just this world. I mean, having lost his mom, but it's also like, yeah, he doesn't even have his dad anymore, but at least all these people around him have their families. And, Because the only one that's kind of currently alone other than him would be like Sam. I mean, but at least Riley's alive. She's just in 1988. His mom's gone, so. Either way, with all of that, there's also, speaking of 88, Franklin's like, oh my god, he ends up managing to charge Josh's phone, and it's like, okay, here's these photos. These prove that we are. I mean, well, the technology itself is kind of like, wait, this is super, super advanced. It's like, oh, it's a phone. Yep, and it's also a camera. Yeah, and it's also a computer. And he's just like, oh, my head hurts. I was like, oh, that's kind of an issue. Showing him the few. Well, to be fair, like what happened to once again, I still should have looked that up, but I don't know if that if that was supposed to be like I said, a historical nod when Josh left that note being like, oh yeah, invest in Apple or something like that, like to that family they took stuff from. It's like, I wonder, is this a family that did actually invest in Apple and is actually a big time, like, is that like a known thing or something? Like, was that, like I said, was that kind of like a history joke if you got it or not? But it's like, yeah, kind of showing someone some technology for the future, letting them know, like, oh, you went to 10,000 BC. The fact is that the center of these sinkholes are time portals. So, he needs to talk to Dr. Clark, but she doesn't want to listen to him because she thinks he's a whack job. And Riley and Josh eventually meet her, and she's like, who sent you? And it's like, wait, what? I was like, the moment she's talking, she's like, oh, James must have sent you. Like, first of all, we don't know who James is, but I was like, are you? I was like, you're part of the Lazarus Project. Didn't even immediately cross my mind to think that would be Gavin's mom, but I was like, oh, that's interesting when it was revealed. I was like, wait, you know Isaiah? She's like, yeah, Isaiah is my son. I was like, whoa, Isaiah is your son? That makes you my grandmother. It's like, man, that family is complicated. Because it's like, everyone's different ages. It's like, oh, for her, she still remembers Isaiah as a little boy. It's like, well, my dad, he's a full grown man, and he had me and my fellow teenage sister. So it's like, hey, grandma, we're meeting you. So, like, I mean, God knows, like, timey-wiminess of it all, because it's just like, for her, it's probably like, I just saw him probably not that long ago, and he was a little boy, and now he's grown, was married, had kids. That's wild, So, I am curious if James is... I wonder, could it be like, could James be Gavin's dad? And could it be that his dad and mom are on opposite sides of this thing? Like, or could they both be on the same side? Like, maybe she was sent for this very specific mission. Maybe she was sent to 88 because of the sinkhole that's happening there. She knew about what was happening. But then why didn't I, probably trying to keep things, it could be like she's been in 88, and while she was in 88, time changed, and the sinkhole that's happening is going to have massive repercussions that she's not aware of, because time is constantly changing and evolving. Because it's like, it takes a while before it like fully solidifies. So from the future, she was from what she knew from the future, or at least maybe what they knew at the Lazarus facility at that time, there was nothing in 88 about that. Like, she might be in 88 for a completely different reason, or maybe not. Maybe it's just like, oh, I don't want to get people from 88 involved, so I made Franklin just think he's crazy. But it's like, no, he knows what he's talking about. So maybe she's been looking into it the entire time. I don't know. A lot of interesting developments. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.